In October 1962, the world came closer to nuclear annihilation than most people will ever realize, and almost no one noticed at the time. The Cold War had already divided the planet into two hostile camps, the United States and the Soviet Union, each armed with nuclear weapons powerful enough to destroy civilization. Tension was constant, but few imagined that a single misunderstanding, a single human decision, could determine the fate of hundreds of millions of lives. Yet, that is exactly what happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis, a real historical event whose most astonishing moment remained hidden for decades. It began when American U-2 spy planes photographed Soviet nuclear missile installations being built in Cuba, just 90 miles from the coast of Florida. For President John F. Kennedy, this discovery was a nightmare. These missiles could reach major U.S. cities within minutes. In response, Kennedy convened a secret group of advisors known as the Executive Committee, or ExComm, to decide how to respond. Options ranged from a full-scale invasion of Cuba to an immediate nuclear strike on the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev believed he was acting defensively. The United States had placed nuclear missiles in Turkey, right on the Soviet border, and Khrushchev saw Cuba as a way to restore balance. Both leaders believed they were preventing war, yet every move they made pushed the world closer to it. For 13 days, the crisis escalated. The U.S. Navy imposed a quarantine around Cuba, stopping Soviet ships from delivering more weapons. American bombers were placed on high alert, armed with nuclear bombs and ready to take off at a moment's notice. In the Soviet Union, nuclear forces were also prepared. Ordinary citizens on both sides went about their daily lives, unaware that global destruction might be only hours away. The most dangerous moment came on October 27, 1962, later known as Black Saturday. A U.S. Navy destroyer dropped practice depth charges near a Soviet submarine, B-59, trying to force it to surface. What the Americans did not know was that the submarine carried a nuclear torpedo. Cut off from communication, overheated, and believing that war might have already begun, the Soviet captain prepared to launch the weapon. According to Soviet protocol, launching the nuclear torpedo required the agreement of 3 officers. 2 of them were ready to fire. The explosion would almost certainly have triggered a full nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union. Cities like New York, Washington, Moscow, and Leningrad could have been wiped out within hours. The 3rd officer was a man named Vasili Arkhipov. Arkhipov refused to give his consent. Despite the extreme pressure, the heat, and the fear, he argued that they had no confirmation that war had started. He insisted the submarine surface instead of launching the torpedo. After tense debate, his judgment prevailed. The submarine surfaced peacefully, and the moment passed. At the time, no one in Washington knew how close they had come to disaster. Kennedy and Khrushchev continued negotiations through secret letters and back-channel diplomacy. Eventually, a deal was reached. The Soviet Union would remove its missiles from Cuba, and the United States would publicly promise not to invade Cuba, while secretly agreeing to remove its missiles from Turkey. The crisis ended, and the world breathed a sigh of relief, without understanding just how fragile that peace had been. For decades, the role of Vasili Arkhipov remained classified. Only after the Cold War ended did historians uncover the truth, that one man's calm decision may have prevented nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis reshaped global politics. It led to the creation of the Washington-Moscow hotline, allowing direct communication between U.S. and Soviet leaders. It also changed how nuclear weapons were controlled, emphasizing safeguards against accidental war. Most importantly, it revealed a sobering truth. History is not only shaped by presidents and generals, but sometimes by individuals whose names are almost forgotten. Today, in a world still filled with nuclear weapons and political tension, the story of the Cuban Missile Crisis remains deeply relevant. It is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, human judgment, restraint, and courage can alter the course of history, and that the survival of the world once depended on a single, quiet decision made deep beneath the ocean.